Have you ever felt like your past is still controlling you? That the mistakes, the neglect, or the hurt from your childhood keep holding you back? What if I told you that everything you've been told about your limits is a lie, and today you can take back the power that was stolen from you? Acknowledging the pain is the very first step in reclaiming your power. For many of us, childhood was supposed to be a time of safety, exploration, and joy, but for so many people, it was anything but that. Maybe you grew up in a home where love was conditional, where mistakes were punished rather than met with guidance, where your voice wasn't heard, or where the adults who were supposed to protect you were absent in the ways you most needed. Or perhaps your childhood wasn't outwardly traumatic, but quiet wounds formed, subtle neglect, constant criticism, the pressure to perform, or the feeling that exists. To stop pretending that what happened to you was normal, or that it doesn't matter. It matters, and it deserves to be acknowledged. When you acknowledge the pain, you give yourself permission to feel. For too long, many people have been taught to bury their emotions, to ignore the hurt, and to just get over it. But true healing does not come from suppression. It comes from recognition. It comes from naming what happened, seeing it clearly, and saying to yourself, yes, that hurt me, and it was real. The human mind has a remarkable capacity for denial. We protect ourselves by pretending that everything is fine, but the subconscious never forgets. The unaddressed pain manifests in ways we don't always recognize: self-sabotage, fear of intimacy, difficulty trusting, perfectionism, anxiety, depression, or even physical health issues. By acknowledging the pain, we shine a light on the areas of our lives where the past has held us captive without our conscious awareness. It is only when you see it clearly that you can begin to take control of it. Acknowledging the pain also requires courage. There is a natural instinct to avoid suffering, to distract ourselves, to say, it wasn't that bad, or I should just move on. But real courage is stepping into the discomfort and facing the truth about your experiences. It is allowing yourself to remember the moments that made you feel small, unheard, or unworthy, and naming them without shame or blame. This is not about reliving the pain in a way that traps you in the past. It is about looking at the past honestly and refusing to let it dictate your future. The courage to acknowledge the pain is also the courage to break free from it. It is the first act of reclaiming your power, because you cannot take back what you've lost if you continue pretending it never happened. Many people resist acknowledging the pain because it feels like it makes them weak. They worry that if they admit they were hurt, they are admitting failure or that they are somehow broken. But the truth is the opposite. Acknowledging your pain is a sign of strength. It is a recognition that you have endured, that you survived, and that you are ready to step into a higher version of yourself. The moment you acknowledge what hurt you, you are no longer a passive participant in your life. You become an active agent of change. You are saying, I will no longer let my past define me. I am ready to take my life back. And that moment of recognition is powerful because it shifts you from victimhood to empowerment. One of the most insidious effects of unacknowledged pain is the way it shapes our internal dialogue. When we carry unhealed wounds from childhood, we often tell ourselves stories that aren't true. I'm not good enough. I don't deserve love. I'm too broken to succeed. Or, I'll never change. These beliefs are not your fault. They were learned. They were formed as survival mechanisms to navigate an environment that didn't provide the love, safety, or affirmation you needed. But here's the key: these stories only have power when you believe them. Acknowledging the pain allows you to examine these beliefs honestly. You can recognize them as false narratives written by a younger version of yourself trying to survive a world that felt unsafe. Once you see them for what they are, you can choose which ones to keep, which ones to discard, and which ones to rewrite entirely. This is an act of liberation. This is taking your first real step toward power. Acknowledging the pain also opens the door to empathy for yourself and for others. When we deny our pain, we often become hard on ourselves or judgmental of others because we are projecting our unhealed wounds onto the world. When we confront and name what hurt us, we start to understand why we react the way we do in certain situations. We start to see the triggers, the patterns, and the unconscious responses that have been shaping our lives. And with understanding comes compassion, not only for ourselves, but for the people who may have hurt us, often unintentionally, because they were carrying their own pain. This doesn't mean excusing harmful behavior, but it does mean freeing yourself from the weight of resentment, blame, and anger that can keep you trapped. Acknowledgement is the bridge between suffering and freedom, and compassion is the path across it. Another aspect of acknowledging the pain is giving it a voice. So many people carry unspoken wounds because they never had a safe space to express them as children. They were told to be quiet, stop crying, or don't be so sensitive. But your pain deserves to be heard, and when you give it a voice, whether through journaling, therapy, prayer, or honest conversations, you begin the process of integration. You are no longer hiding it in the shadows of your mind where it festers. You are bringing it into the light. This act of voicing your pain is powerful because it transforms suffering into awareness, and awareness is the foundation of change. When you acknowledge and speak your truth, you reclaim a piece of yourself that was lost to silence. It is also essential to recognize that acknowledging the pain does not mean you are defined by it. So often, people fear that if they face the wounds of their past, they will become consumed by them. But the opposite is true. When you shine a light on your pain, you take away its power to control you secretly. You are no longer letting it run your life from the shadows. You are bringing it into conscious awareness so you can decide how to respond. You are not your pain, you are the one who has survived it, the one who is capable of growth, resilience, and transformation. The acknowledgement is the key that unlocks the door from victimhood to agency. And here's another important truth. The process of acknowledging the pain is not linear. You might think you have confronted something only to realize years later that there are deeper layers you hadn't noticed. You may feel waves of grief, anger, or sadness that surprise you. This is not a failure, it is the natural unfolding of healing. Each time you acknowledge a new layer, you are reclaiming more of your power. Each time you face a memory, a belief, or a feeling that has haunted you, you are saying to yourself, I will not be defined by this. I will not be limited by this. I am bigger than my past. Acknowledging the pain also means taking responsibility for your own healing. For many, it is tempting to look for someone else to fix the damage, to blame parents, caregivers, teachers, or circumstances. While it is true that you were hurt by others, the truth is that no one else can reclaim your power for you. That responsibility is yours, and that is actually empowering. It means that your future is not locked by the mistakes of the past. It means that you hold the key. The moment you step into that responsibility, you take the first authentic step toward freedom. You are no longer waiting for someone else to change, apologize, or make things right. You are choosing to heal, to grow, and to take control of your life. Acknowledging the pain is also about setting the intention to transform it. When you recognize the hurt of your past, it is natural to feel a mixture of emotions, sadness, regret, anger, or even shame. But instead of letting those emotions define you, you can use them as fuel. Each memory, each wound, each scar is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to build resilience. Pain, when acknowledged and processed, becomes a teacher. It shows you what you value, where you have been limited, and where you have the potential to expand. It reminds you that life is precious, that love is necessary, and that you have the capacity to create something different from what you experienced. Finally, acknowledging the pain is a radical act of self-love. It is saying to yourself, I see you. I honor what you went through. I will no longer pretend that your experiences don't matter. It is the moment you stop minimizing yourself, your history, and your feelings. It is the moment you start treating yourself with the same care and attention that perhaps you never received as a child. And in that recognition, in that acknowledgement, there is freedom. There is the first tangible taste of empowerment. There is the spark that says, I will not be defined by what happened to me. I am ready to take back my life. Understanding that you are not your past is one of the most liberating realizations you can ever have. So often, we carry the weight of our childhood, our mistakes, and the things that happened to us as if they are permanent labels stamped on our lives. I'm the shy one. I'm the angry one. I'm the one who always fails. These identities feel permanent, but they are not. They are reflections of circumstances, not the essence of who you are. What happened to you shaped your experiences, yes, but it does not define your destiny. The first moment you truly understand that, your perspective shifts from limitation to possibility, from captivity to freedom. You begin to see that the person you are today, the person you can become tomorrow, is far bigger than any story your past tried to write for you. Most of us carry the illusion that our past determines our future. When childhood experiences were painful, abandonment, criticism, neglect, abuse, those experiences can feel like chains. We internalize the messages we receive. You're not enough. You can't succeed. You'll never be loved. And these messages, repeated over years, form a lens through which we view the world. Every decision, every fear, every moment of self-doubt becomes filtered through this lens. But here's the truth that lens is optional. The story your past told about you is not the story you have to live by. You have the authority to change it, rewrite it, and reframe it. Understanding that you are not your past is about reclaiming that authority. It is about saying, what happened to me does not have the final word on who I am. One of the biggest obstacles to this understanding is the way memory works. Human memory is not a perfect record of events. It is a narrative shaped by perception, emotion, and time. Many of the beliefs we hold about ourselves were formed from fragments of experiences that we interpreted in a certain way as children. A critical parent, a moment of rejection, a failure at school. These events are powerful, but they do not define our identity unless we give them the power to do so. When you start to examine your past through the lens of truth rather than interpretation, you begin to see patterns instead of permanence. You start to notice that you acted the best you could with the resources you had at the time. You start to realize that those early messages, as painful as they were, are not the gospel of your life. They are merely context, background, and circumstance. Understanding that you are not your past also means separating your identity from your trauma. Trauma leaves imprints. It changes how we respond to stress, how we form relationships, and even how we view ourselves. But it does not define our worth. A person who was abandoned as a child is not an abandoned person. By definition, they are a human being who experienced abandonment. A person who grew up in an environment of criticism is not a criticized person. Forever, they are someone capable of growth, resilience, and self-compassion. This distinction is subtle but powerful. When you separate your identity from your experiences, you gain perspective, and perspective is the first step toward empowerment. You realize that the narrative you have been living in, one written by fear, shame, and pain, is optional. You can choose a new narrative. One of the most effective ways to internalize this understanding is through reflection and reframing. Take a moment to look at your life story and identify the moments that have shaped you, especially the painful ones. Then ask yourself, is this a fact about me, or is this a story I have been telling myself? For example, if someone says, I am a failure because I didn't succeed as a child, recognize that failing at a task as a child does not mean you are inherently a failure. It simply means you were learning, growing, and human. By consciously reframing your past experiences, you reclaim authority over your self-perception. You start to see yourself not as a victim of circumstance, but as a resilient individual capable of navigating challenges and creating change. Another crucial aspect of this understanding is embracing self-compassion. When we identify too closely with our past, we often carry shame, guilt, or anger toward ourselves. We replay old mistakes in our minds, reliving the embarrassment, the fear, or the pain. But the truth is, every choice you made as a child or as a younger person was made with the knowledge, resources, and emotional capacity you had at that time. You were doing the best you could, and it's time to honor that effort rather than punish yourself for it. Self-compassion is the bridge between acknowledging your past and refusing to let it dictate your present. It allows you to say, yes, I experienced hurt, and yes, I grew from it. I am not limited by it. Understanding that you are not your past also shifts your relationship with other people. Often, the experiences we had as children cause us to project our past onto current relationships. We may mistrust people, fear intimacy, or react defensively because we are still living under the shadow of old wounds. When we internalize the truth that our past does not define us, we free ourselves from these unconscious reactions. We begin to approach relationships with curiosity, openness, and intentionality rather than fear. We learn to engage with people based on who they are, not based on the scripts of hurt we learned long ago. This freedom transforms not only how we view ourselves, but also how we interact with the world. One of the most powerful dimensions of this understanding is realizing the agency it gives you over your own life. The past happened. You cannot change it, but your response to the past is entirely within your control. The moment you internalize the fact that you are not your past, you begin to make conscious choices rather than reactive ones. You start to notice when old patterns surface and actively choose a new response. You recognize that your worth, your success, and your happiness are not determined by childhood experiences. They are determined by your actions today, the decisions you make, and the mindset you cultivate. Understanding this is like stepping into sunlight after living in the shadow for years. You realize you have been given a second chance at life every single day. Another way to embrace this understanding is through storytelling, both personal and external. Writing down your story, speaking it aloud, or even sharing it with a trusted friend or mentor allows you to see it from a new perspective. When you tell your story, you begin to take control of the narrative. You highlight not only the struggles, but also the resilience, the lessons, and the moments of triumph. By framing your life story with intention, you communicate to yourself and to others that you are more than what happened to you. You are a living, breathing example of growth and transformation. And as you tell your story, something remarkable happens. You start to believe it. You start to live it. It is also vital to recognize the power of choice in separating yourself from your past. Many people live as if they are trapped by old experiences, as if the circumstances of their childhood dictate their adult potential. But this is an illusion. Every day presents opportunities to choose differently, to respond with courage, to break old cycles, and to step into the life you were meant to live. You can choose how you define yourself, what habits you cultivate, and how you interact with the world. Your past may provide context, but it does not provide limitation. You are not beholden to the roles, labels, or narratives that were imposed upon you. Understanding this gives you freedom, hope, and a roadmap for action. Finally, understanding that you are not your past invites a sense of hope and possibility that is life-changing. It tells you that you are not bound by what you experienced, that the mistakes of your younger years do not define your capacity for success, love, or fulfillment. You can become the person you have always dreamed of being. You can rewrite your story, not by erasing the past, but by integrating it, learning from it, and choosing to live beyond it. You can look at the younger version of yourself, the one who are unsure, and say, I honor you, I see you. But I am not limited by you. I am choosing to rise above and step into the life I was meant to live. Breaking the cycle is one of the most challenging but most rewarding steps in reclaiming your life. The cycle we're talking about isn't just a habit or a bad choice. It's the invisible thread that runs through generations, the patterns we learned as children, and the unconscious behaviors we repeat without even realizing it. Many of us grew up watching patterns of behavior that we promised ourselves we would never repeat, yet somehow, when left unchecked, those same patterns emerge in our own lives, the way we relate to others, the fears we carry, the self-sabotaging habits, and even our inner dialogue can be echoes of what we experienced as children. These cycles often begin as survival strategies necessary for a younger version of ourselves to cope with a confusing, painful, or neglectful environment. What served us then often limits us now, and breaking the cycle requires awareness, courage, and deliberate action. The first step in breaking the cycle is recognition. You have to become aware of the patterns you've inherited, both from your family of origin and from your own experiences. Many people go through life without ever noticing that their behaviors are reactions to past experiences. For instance, maybe you grew up in a household where criticism was constant. As an adult, you might overcompensate by being overly critical of yourself or others, unconsciously repeating the cycle. Or perhaps you witness conflict being avoided at all costs, and now you suppress your own emotions to maintain peace, sacrificing your own needs. The patterns can be subtle, but they shape every aspect of your relationships, your career, and your sense of self. Recognition is the first act of liberation. You can't change what you don't see, and you can't break what you don't acknowledge. So take a step back and honestly examine your life. Look for recurring themes, emotional reactions, and behavioral loops. Identify the moments where the past is still steering your present decisions, often without your conscious awareness. Once you recognize the cycle, the next step is understanding its origins. This requires honesty and sometimes painful introspection. Ask yourself, where did this pattern start? How did my childhood experiences influence my reactions, beliefs, and behaviors? Understanding the origin of a cycle is not about blaming anyone, parents, siblings, or circumstances. It is about context. It is about seeing that the behaviors and strategies that once helped you survive are not necessarily helping you thrive today. For example, A child who was never praised for achievements might grow into an adult who constantly seeks validation, yet never feels truly worthy. Understanding that this need for external validation is rooted in a childhood lack of affirmation can transform how you approach relationships and self-worth today. Context provides clarity, and clarity is the foundation for change. Breaking the cycle also requires conscious decision-making. You have to choose, moment by moment, to respond differently than the pattern dictates. This is where awareness meets action. The human brain is wired to repeat familiar behaviors because they are comfortable and predictable, even if they are harmful. Change requires intentional disruption. It is uncomfortable at first. It may provoke fear, resistance, or self-doubt. But every time you interrupt a pattern, no matter how small, you are reclaiming a piece of your power. You are telling yourself, I will not be defined by what I experienced. I will define my own path. It is in these small, deliberate choices, choosing patience instead of anger, compassion instead of judgment, courage instead of avoidance, that the cycle begins to break. And over time, those choices accumulate into lasting transformation. One of the most difficult aspects of breaking a cycle is confronting the emotional baggage attached to it. Patterns from childhood are not just behaviors, they are often fueled by deeply ingrained beliefs and emotions. Fear, shame, guilt, and anger are powerful forces that keep us tethered to old ways of being. To truly break the cycle, you have to face these emotions head on. You have to feel them fully, not to dwell in them, but to understand them and release their hold over you. This might mean allowing yourself to grieve the childhood you didn't have, to mourn the support you lacked, or to process the pain you endured. Emotional honesty is not weakness, it is strength. It is a necessary step because patterns are reinforced by unprocessed emotions. When you bring those emotions into awareness and begin to process them, you dismantle the fuel that keeps the cycle alive. Breaking the cycle also requires creating new patterns in its place. It is not enough to stop doing what no longer serves you. You have to replace it with something healthier, something intentional. Habits, routines, and rituals are powerful tools for this transformation. If your childhood left you with a sense of instability, create structures in your adult life that foster security and predictability. If your early years taught you criticism and self-doubt, cultivate practices that nurture self-acceptance and affirmation. If your family of origin modeled conflict avoidance, practice healthy communication and emotional honesty. These new patterns are not quick fixes. They are long-term investments in the life you are building. Each intentional action reinforces the truth that you are not bound by your past. You are empowered to create your present and future. Another critical element in breaking the cycle is seeking support. Many people try to do it alone, but transformation is rarely achieved in isolation. Mentors, coaches, therapists, and supportive communities provide guidance, perspective, and accountability. They help you see blind spots, validate your experiences, and encourage you when the process feels overwhelming. Breaking deep-rooted cycles can bring up resistance, fear, or feelings of failure, and having someone who understands and supports you can make all the difference. Support is not weakness, it is leverage. It accelerates growth and reinforces the truth that you are capable of change. Breaking the cycle also involves setting boundaries. Sometimes for the first time in your life, many patterns persist because we never learned to protect ourselves emotionally, mentally, or physically. Perhaps you grew up in an environment where your needs were dismissed, and as an adult, you continue to prioritize others over yourself. Breaking the cycle might mean saying no to toxic relationships, creating space for healing, or refusing to accept behaviors that perpetuate old wounds. Boundaries are not walls, they are bridges. They allow you to step into your power while still engaging with the world in a healthy and intentional way. It is important to recognize that breaking the cycle does not happen overnight. It is a process often filled with setbacks, frustrations, and moments of doubt. You may catch yourself slipping back into old behaviors, feeling the pull of the familiar, or questioning whether change is possible. These moments are not failures, they are part of the process. Every time you notice an old pattern resurfacing, you gain awareness, and awareness is power. You learn more about yourself, your triggers, and the strategies that work for you. Change is iterative. Each day, each choice, each intentional act chips away at the old patterns and strengthens the new ones. Persistence and patience are your allies in this journey. Breaking the cycle also requires a shift in identity. Many people cling to old patterns because they have identified so closely with them that letting go feels like losing a part of themselves. You have to redefine who you are in a way that aligns with your values, your vision, and your highest potential. Instead of identifying as someone shaped by past wounds, identify as someone resilient, capable, and empowered. This identity shift is not just mental, it is embodied. It affects how you act, how you respond, and how you interact with the world. When you fully embrace a new identity, old patterns lose their grip because you are no longer living in service of them. You are living in service of your higher self. Finally, breaking the cycle is a declaration of freedom. It is a statement to yourself and the world that you will not be defined by what you endured. It is the conscious choice to step out of the shadows of generational patterns, old habits, and unconscious behaviors. It is the realization that your past is not a prison, it is a platform. Every challenge, every hardship, and every pattern that once held you captive becomes a stepping stone toward your empowerment. When you break the cycle, you are not only transforming your life, you are reshaping your legacy. You are showing future generations, and perhaps even the younger version of yourself, that it is possible to rise above the patterns, heal the wounds, and create a life marked not by repetition, but by intentionality, courage, and purpose. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood concepts in human life, especially when it comes to healing from childhood wounds. Many people think that forgiving someone means you have to forget what they did, that you have to minimize the pain they caused, or that you are excusing their behavior. That's not true. Forgiveness is not about the other person, it is about you. It is about releasing the hold that past hurt has on your present and your future. When you carry bitterness, anger, resentment, or even a sense of injustice from what happened to you, those emotions anchor you to the past. They shape your decisions, distort your relationships, and rob you of peace. Forgiveness is the act of saying, I am not letting this pain control me anymore, without pretending that the wrong never happened or that it was acceptable. It is an act of radical empowerment, a declaration that your life and your heart are not defined by what others did to you. Understanding that forgiveness does not mean forgetting is crucial, because forgetting is often impossible, especially when the pain cut deep. Memories of betrayal, neglect, or abuse are not easily erased. Even if the wounds fade with time, the lessons and scars remain. And that is okay. You don't need to erase history to move forward. In fact, remembering can be a tool for growth. When you forgive without forgetting, you are acknowledging reality. You are saying, this happened, it was wrong, it hurt me, but I will not let it dictate my life. Forgiveness without forgetting is a conscious choice to reclaim your power. It is a statement that your well-being and peace of mind are more important than holding on to anger or seeking revenge. It transforms the narrative from one of victimhood to one of agency. Forgiveness is also not about reconciling with the person who hurt you. Many people think they must repair a relationship to forgive, but that is not true. Sometimes the person who hurt you is still toxic, abusive, or absent, and interacting with them would only harm you further. Forgiveness is internal, not external. It is a private decision to let go of the emotional chains that bind you. You can forgive someone without allowing them back into your life. You can forgive someone without condoning their actions. You can forgive someone without even telling them. It is an act of freedom for yourself. It releases the energy you were giving to the past and redirects it toward building a future that serves your growth, joy, and peace. Many people resist forgiveness because they equate it with weakness or vulnerability. They fear that letting go of anger or resentment will make them appear naive, soft, or powerless. But the truth is the opposite. Forgiveness is strength. It requires courage to face your pain, acknowledge the injustice, and make a deliberate choice to release it. It requires resilience to stand firm in your boundaries while still granting yourself the freedom to heal. And it requires wisdom to recognize that holding on to bitterness punishes you far more than the person who hurt you. When you forgive, you are not giving away power, you are reclaiming it. You are choosing to no longer be a prisoner of your past, and that is one of the most powerful decisions you can make. Forgiveness also transforms how you view yourself. Many people carry shame or guilt because of what happened in their past. They may blame themselves for things that were never their fault, or they may internalize the messages of neglect or abuse. Forgiving others allows you to see yourself more clearly. It helps you separate your identity from the harm inflicted upon you. It allows you to say, I am not my pain. I am not my past. I am worthy of love, peace, and joy. When you forgive, you reclaim your sense of self and your emotional autonomy. You stop letting the actions of others define your worth, your choices, and your future. Forgiveness is also a journey, not a single event. It is rarely instantaneous, especially when the wounds are deep or when the betrayal was profound. You may need to forgive the same person or situation multiple times. You may have to revisit the pain, process it, and consciously choose forgiveness over and over again, and that is okay. Healing is not linear, and forgiveness is not a one-time time declaration. Each act of forgiveness chips away at the hold the past has on you. Each time you release resentment, bitterness, or anger, you create space for peace, clarity, and empowerment. The repetition is part of the process. It is a training of your heart and mind to prioritize your well-being over your attachment to pain. It is also essential to recognize that forgiveness is not about emotional erasure. You do not have to feel good about what happened, and you do not have to pretend that the experience didn't hurt you. Forgiveness is about ownership of your emotional life. It is about deciding that you will not allow the pain of the past to dictate your present. You can acknowledge that what happened was unjust, that it left scars, and that it shaped part of your story without allowing it to control your narrative anymore. In this sense, forgiveness is not forgetting, it is remembering differently. It is remembering with awareness and choosing a response that empowers rather than limits you. Another key aspect of forgiveness is understanding the distinction between forgiveness and reconciliation. Reconciliation requires both parties to participate and often involves trust being rebuilt over time. Forgiveness, however, is unilateral. It is entirely within your control. You do not need the other person's approval, acknowledgement, or apology to forgive. You can forgive silently, privately, and internally. This distinction is critical because it prevents you from waiting for someone else to change or make amends before you can heal. Forgiveness gives you the key to your own freedom without relying on external validation. It allows you to step out of the role of victim and into the role of empowered survivor. Forgiveness is also a pathway to emotional freedom and resilience. Holding on to anger and resentment keeps you tethered to the past, draining your energy, clouding your judgment, and limiting your capacity for joy. Forgiveness, on the other hand, frees up emotional bandwidth. It allows you to focus on growth, relationships, and opportunities instead of being stuck in cycles of bitterness. It strengthens your emotional muscles, teaching you to process hurt without letting it dominate your identity. It gives you resilience, the ability to face life's inevitable challenges without being weighed down by old wounds. Each act of forgiveness reinforces your capacity to rise above circumstances and live with clarity and purpose. Forgiveness also transforms how you engage with others. When you carry anger or resentment, it often leaks into your relationships, affecting how you relate to friends, partners, colleagues, and even strangers. You may overreact, judge prematurely, or project your past pain onto others. When you forgive, you break this pattern. You approach relationships from a place of presence rather than projection, from a place of love rather than fear. Forgiveness allows you to create healthier connections, not because others have changed, but because you have changed. You become free to love fully, communicate openly, and engage authentically, unburdened by the emotional weight of unresolved past hurts. Another aspect of forgiveness is its spiritual dimension. Many people find that holding on to anger and resentment feels like carrying a heavy burden on their soul. Forgiveness is a way to release that burden. It is a recognition that your life is bigger than the pain inflicted upon you. It is a commitment to live with integrity, purpose, and peace, regardless of the actions of others. In this sense, forgiveness is a declaration of sovereignty over your inner life. You are no longer at the mercy of the past. You are the steward of your emotions, your choices, and your destiny. It is a profound act of self-liberation. Finally, forgiveness is an act of courage, empowerment, and love. It is courageous because it requires you to face the reality of what happened, to feel the pain, and to choose freedom despite the hurt. It is empowering because it restores your agency. You are no longer defined by what others did to you. And it is an act of love because it creates space in your heart for growth, joy, and connection. Forgiveness allows you to step fully into your own power, to reclaim your narrative, and to live a life that is not defined by the injustices of the past. By choosing forgiveness, you are not forgetting, you are remembering differently, integrating the experience, and using it as a springboard toward freedom, resilience, and an empowered future. Taking responsibility for your future is one of the most powerful steps you can take toward reclaiming your life and your power. It is the conscious decision to stop letting the circumstances of your past, the mistakes of others, or the setbacks you've experienced dictate the trajectory of your life. Too often, people feel trapped by what happened to them. They point to their childhood, their upbringing, or the choices of others as reasons why they can't succeed, why they aren't enough, or why life is unfair. But the truth is, your future is not determined by anyone else. It is determined by you. Every choice, every action, every decision you make has the potential to shape the life you live tomorrow. Taking responsibility for your future means stepping out of a mindset of blame and stepping into a mindset of ownership, courage, and intentionality. Responsibility begins with the acknowledgement that while you cannot change the past, You can change the impact the past has on your life. The experiences you endured may have left scars, limitations, or beliefs that no longer serve you, but you are not powerless. You have the capacity to decide how those experiences shape you going forward. This is where empowerment begins. By taking responsibility, you move from a passive role in your life, where life happens to you, to an active role where you are the author of your own story. You begin to realize that the power to create, to grow, and to thrive lies within your hands, and that realization is both liberating and transformative. Taking responsibility also requires honesty with yourself. It requires looking in the mirror and confronting the parts of your life where you may have avoided accountability. Maybe you've been waiting for someone else to fix your circumstances, or maybe you have blamed external factors for your stagnation or dissatisfaction. It can be uncomfortable to admit that some of your challenges are influenced by your own choices, patterns, or inaction, but honesty is essential for growth. Owning your part in your life's outcomes does not mean taking blame for everything or diminishing the wrongs you've endured. It means recognizing that you are capable of influence, that you have agency, and that you can make changes that move you closer to the life you want. When you take responsibility for your future, you stop being a victim of circumstance. It is easy to fall into the mindset that things just happen to me, or that I can't control what happens in my life. But the reality is that while we cannot control every external event, we can control our responses to those events. Our habits, our mindset, our focus, and our choices are within our control. By owning this, you reclaim a level of freedom that is transformative. You realize that your life is not a product of chance, fate, or luck. It is the result of your decisions, your effort, and your intentionality. Every time you make a conscious choice, no matter how small, you are building the future you desire. Responsibility is the foundation upon which empowerment, growth, and success are built. Taking responsibility for your future also means embracing your goals and vision with clarity and commitment. Many people drift through life without a clear picture of what they want, allowing external circumstances or the expectations of others to dictate their path. When you take responsibility, you define your own destination. You decide what success, fulfillment, and happiness look like for you. You set goals that align with your values, your passions, and your purpose. And you commit to taking consistent action toward those goals, knowing that your future is built not on wishes, but on deliberate, intentional steps. This mindset transforms uncertainty into confidence, fear into focus, and hope into action. Another critical aspect of taking responsibility is understanding the relationship between responsibility and empowerment. When you embrace responsibility, you also embrace power. It is easy to feel powerless when you focus on what others have done to you or what obstacles exist outside of your control. But when you shift your focus inward and acknowledge the power of your choices, you reclaim control over your life. Empowerment does not come from changing others, it comes from changing yourself. It comes from cultivating the skills, mindset, and habits that allow you to thrive regardless of circumstances. Responsibility and empowerment are inseparable. One cannot exist without the other. By taking responsibility, you activate your capacity to influence outcomes, transform challenges into opportunities, and create a life that reflects your highest potential. Taking responsibility also involves embracing discipline and accountability. It is not enough to have dreams, goals, or aspirations. You must also take consistent action to bring them to life. This requires developing habits, routines, and practices that support your growth. It requires holding yourself accountable, even when it is uncomfortable or inconvenient. The most successful people are not those who have the perfect circumstances, but those who take responsibility for their progress and persevere through obstacles. When you commit to accountability, you create momentum. Each small step compounds over time, turning effort into results and potential into reality. Responsibility transforms vision into action and action into achievement. Taking responsibility for your future also requires courage to make difficult decisions. Sometimes reclaiming your life means leaving behind situations, relationships, or environments that no longer serve you. It may mean facing fears, challenging limiting beliefs, or confronting uncomfortable truths about yourself. These decisions are not easy, but they are necessary for growth. Every choice to act in alignment with your values, rather than succumbing to fear or comfort, is an act of responsibility. It is a declaration that you will not let inertia, habit, or the expectations of others dictate your life. Courage and responsibility go hand in hand because taking responsibility often demands stepping into the unknown with faith in your own ability to navigate it. Another critical component of taking responsibility is the recognition of your own influence. Too often, people underestimate the impact of their daily choices on the trajectory of their lives. The decisions you make regarding your mindset, relationships, health, career, and personal development all accumulate over time. Small choices matter, even when they feel insignificant in the moment. By embracing this principle, you stop waiting for a perfect opportunity or for someone else to validate your path. You begin to see that you have been equipped with everything you need to shape your life, your mind, your heart, your talents, and your resolve. Taking responsibility means stepping fully into that capacity and refusing to settle for less than the life you are capable of creating. Taking responsibility is also about resilience in the face of setbacks. Life will inevitably present challenges, obstacles, and failures. When you adopt a mindset of responsibility, you do not see these events as proof that you are powerless or that life is against you. Instead, you view them as opportunities to learn, adapt, and grow. Responsibility empowers you to take constructive action rather than being paralyzed by blame, self-pity, or resentment. You understand that while you cannot control every event, you can control your response, and your response determines the direction of your life. Resilience is born from responsibility because it is the act of choosing forward momentum even when circumstances are difficult or uncertain. Taking responsibility for your future also intersects with self-leadership. To lead your life effectively, you must take charge of your own mindset, your habits, and your priorities. You must be proactive rather than reactive. You must plan, execute, and course correct as necessary. Self-leadership is the embodiment of responsibility. It is the willingness to take ownership of your growth, your decisions, and the legacy you are creating. It requires clarity of vision, courage in action, and persistence in the face of resistance. By leading yourself, you model empowerment not only for yourself, but also for those around you, inspiring others to take ownership of their own lives as well. Finally, taking responsibility for your future is an act of hope. It is a declaration that your life is not bound by the mistakes, neglect, or limitations of your past. It is a conscious choice to focus on possibilities rather than problems, on solutions rather than excuses, and on growth rather than stagnation. Responsibility transforms despair into purpose, fear into confidence, and limitation into potential. It is the bridge between the life you have inherited and the life you have the power to create. When you embrace responsibility, you embrace the truth that your future is not waiting to be discovered. It is waiting to be built by your choices, your effort, and your determination. Practical steps to empowerment are where vision meets action, where insight transforms into tangible change, and where the desire to reclaim your life becomes a lived reality. It is one thing to understand that you are not your past, to forgive, or to take responsibility for your future, but without practical steps, knowledge remains potential, not power. Empowerment is not abstract. It is built through deliberate, consistent action that aligns with your values, strengthens your resilience, and cultivates your confidence. The steps themselves are not complicated, but they require intentionality, courage, and persistence. Every act you take to strengthen yourself, reclaim control, and cultivate growth moves you closer to the person you were meant to become. Empowerment is earned, nurtured, and exercised, and these practical steps provide the scaffolding for lasting transformation. The first practical step toward empowerment is cultivating self-awareness. Awareness is the foundation of all growth because you cannot change what you do not recognize. Self-awareness involves reflecting on your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors to understand what drives you and what holds you back. This means noticing when past wounds are influencing your reactions, when fear or self-doubt is shaping your choices, and when unconscious patterns are limiting your potential. Self-awareness allows you to pause before responding, to evaluate your options consciously, and to choose actions that align with your highest values. It is a daily practice through journaling, meditation, prayer, or quiet reflection that gradually builds clarity about who you are, what you want, and how you can move intentionally toward it. Another critical step is setting boundaries. Empowerment is impossible when your energy, focus, or emotional well-being is constantly being drained by people, situations, or habits that do not serve you. Boundaries are the lines you draw to protect yourself and your growth. They define what is acceptable, what is not, and what you will no longer tolerate in your life. This may involve difficult conversations, saying no to toxic relationships, or removing yourself from harmful environments. Boundaries are not selfish, they are essential for self-preservation and intentional living. They send a powerful message to yourself and the world: I am responsible for my well-being, and I will not allow others to dictate my worth or steal my energy. Each boundary you establish is a step toward reclaiming your power and living life on your own terms. Cultivating a growth mindset is another practical step toward empowerment. Many of us carry limiting beliefs that were instilled in childhood, beliefs that we are not capable, not deserving, or not enough. A growth mindset is the conscious choice to view challenges as opportunities, setbacks as lessons, and potential as limitless. It is the practice of replacing self-doubt with curiosity, fear with exploration, and limitation with possibility. By intentionally cultivating this mindset, you begin to see yourself as capable of growth, capable of change, and capable of achieving your goals. Empowerment is rooted in the belief that your abilities are not fixed, that your circumstances do not define you, and that with effort, perseverance, and learning, you can rise above the patterns that have held you back. Another practical step is taking ownership of your health and energy. Physical, mental, and emotional well-being are inseparable from empowerment. You cannot operate at your highest potential if you are running on depletion, neglect, or self-neglect. Taking responsibility for your health may include nourishing your body with proper nutrition, engaging in regular physical activity, prioritizing rest, and practicing stress management. Emotional health may involve therapy, journaling, or cultivating supportive relationships. Mental health requires setting limits on negativity, consuming inspiring content, and practicing mindfulness. Each action you take to nurture your health strengthens your capacity to respond to life with clarity, resilience, and intentionality. Empowerment thrives where energy, focus, and vitality are nurtured and protected. Developing emotional intelligence is another vital practical step. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your emotions while also empathizing with the emotions of others. Many of the challenges in life, particularly those rooted in childhood wounds, arise from unprocessed emotions, reactive patterns, or difficulty relating to others. By developing emotional intelligence, you gain control over your reactions, enhance your relationships, and navigate challenges with grace. You learn to respond rather than react, to engage rather than avoid, and to lead with awareness rather than impulse. Emotional intelligence is the bridge between self-mastery and relational mastery, allowing you to act from a place of strength, clarity, and intentionality in every sphere of life. Another essential practical step is cultivating a supportive environment. Your environment, both physical and social, shapes your habits, mindset, and opportunities. Surrounding yourself with people who encourage growth, hold you accountable, and inspire you is critical. This may mean seeking mentors, joining communities that reflect your values, or simply spending more time with people who lift you rather than drain you. It also means creating a physical environment that supports your goals, whether it's a dedicated workspace, a decluttered living space, or routines that reinforce focus and productivity. Empowerment flourishes in environments that nurture growth and stifle distraction, toxicity, and stagnation. Another step toward empowerment is taking decisive, consistent action. Knowledge, awareness, and reflection are essential, but without action, they remain theoretical. Empowerment is forged through doing. It is the act of taking steps toward your goals, even when fear, uncertainty, or discomfort arises. Each action builds momentum, confidence, and competence. Empowerment grows with consistency, showing up for yourself daily, making decisions that align with your values, and refusing to wait for perfect conditions. Taking action, no matter how small, creates evidence for yourself that you are capable, that you are in control, and that you can shape the trajectory of your life. Developing a practice of gratitude and perspective is also a practical step to empowerment. Gratitude shifts your focus from what is lacking to what is abundant, from limitation to possibility. It strengthens your mindset, fosters resilience, and helps you recognize the resources, support, and opportunities available to you. Perspective allows you to see challenges not as insurmountable barriers, but as temporary tests and lessons. By intentionally cultivating these practices, you create a mental and emotional framework that supports empowerment rather than undermines it. You learn to respond to life with optimism, clarity, and determination rather than with resentment, fear, or defeat. Taking responsibility for your learning and growth is another practical step. Empowerment is closely tied to competence, knowledge, and skill development. Life is dynamic, and the ability to adapt, learn, and grow is essential. This may involve formal education, self-study, mentorship, skill building, or personal development practices. The commitment to lifelong learning reinforces your confidence and equips you with the tools to navigate challenges effectively. When you invest in your growth, you are actively shaping your future rather than being shaped by circumstances. Knowledge, when applied with intention, is empowerment in action. Finally, empowerment is cultivated through reflection and alignment. Regularly pausing to reflect on your actions, your progress, and your alignment with your values ensures that your steps are intentional. Reflection allows you to course correct, to celebrate wins, and to identify areas for improvement. Alignment ensures that your actions resonate with your purpose and vision. Empowerment is not simply a result of doing more, It is a result of doing what matters with clarity, focus, and intentionality. Each reflective practice, each course correction, and each intentional step reinforces your ability to live a life of purpose, freedom, and power. Practical steps to empowerment are not a checklist to complete once. They are daily disciplines to integrate into your life. They require commitment, consistency, and courage. Each step builds upon the other. Self-awareness informs boundaries. Boundaries support emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence enhances relationships, and relationships strengthen your capacity to take decisive action. Over time, these steps compound, transforming not only your habits and behaviors, but your identity, your mindset, and your destiny. Empowerment is not a distant dream. It is the result of deliberate action, intentional choice, and unwavering commitment to living in alignment with your highest self. Each step you take moves you closer to reclaiming your power, shaping your future, and becoming the person you were always meant to be. Now, take a moment and let this sink. In the past may have shaped you, the mistakes of others may have hurt you, and the cycles of your childhood may have tried to define you, but none of that has the final word. You are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not limited by what happened to you. Every realization we've explored, the understanding that you are more than your history, the courage to break cycles, the freedom found in forgiveness, the responsibility to shape your future, and the practical steps you take each day to empower yourself is a roadmap back to the life you were always meant to live. The power you've been seeking hasn't been out there waiting for you. It's been inside of you all along. Every choice you make now, every boundary you set, every act of self-awareness, growth, and courage is a declaration: I am reclaiming my life. I am no longer a victim. I am the author of my story. And when you step into that truth, the world responds. Opportunities appear, relationships transform, confidence grows, and doors you never imagined open. This is the life that comes when you refuse to let the past dictate your present and instead take full responsibility for your future. So as you move forward from this moment, remember this: empowerment is not something that happens to you. It is something you claim moment by moment, choice by choice. The cycles that once held you back are breaking. The pain that once defined you is being transformed into purpose. The power you've been longing for is yours, waiting for you to take it and run with it. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for someone else to fix it. Start today. Step into your power. Rewrite your story. And live a life that is not limited by what was taken from you, but defined by what you are determined to create. Your past may have tried to steal your power, but your future is a blank page, and it's yours to write. How you weren't enough. These experiences leave marks that don't fade just because time passes. They shape how we see ourselves, how we trust others, and how we approach life as adults. The first step toward reclaiming your power is to stop denying that these wounds